Good evening. Well, listeners, normally when we invite a guest to our studio for an interview, we say, "Welcome to our studio." This evening, however, our story is a little different, as our interviewee is in fact a regular host in the studio as a presenter, an interviewer, a newsreader, a science script writer, and many more. But first and foremost, Rahul Chatterjee is a physics teacher, and his untiring efforts in educating his students through dynamic methods for the last 25 years has been aptly recognized. He has been selected for the National Award to Teachers 2020 as announced by the Union Ministry of Education. Well, Rahul, we at All India Radio are indeed proud to have you as a member of our family and delighted to join in the celebrations. Welcome to the other side of the show as you share with us the story of your success, and once again, a heartiest congratulations. I feel especially happy this evening to wish an amazing teacher like you a very happy Teacher's Day.
Thank you so much. It's indeed a privilege to belong to this family of All India Radio, and this is my 30th year with All India Radio, and I've learned so much. My experiences here in All India Radio certainly has added to a lot of the dimensions in class.
So, to begin with, please share with us the journey of your teaching life.
Well, it started in 1994, soon after I passed my master's degree. Initially, I had joined Lady Keane School as a science teacher. I had to teach small children as young as class 4 to the senior most class 10, science, maths, sometimes even, substitute a teacher who teaches English. And if you have that crazy worm inside your head that keeps biting at your brains all the time, telling you just going to class and reading the textbook or explaining the lesson is not enough, then you start doing things, and that started in Lady Keane School itself. But I didn't stay there too long to do much over there, and this opportunity teaching students of the higher secondary level, just classes 11 and 12, and only physics attracted me. I was in love with physics for a very long time. I knew I wanted to be in physics right from the time when I was in class 6.
You wanted to be in physics,
Yeah.
but did you actually want to be in teaching, or it just happened by chance?
Well, when I fell in love with physics, I didn't know that teaching would be involved. See, I have 2 sisters elder than me, and the eldest one is 5 years older to me. And so when she was studying physics, I would go check out what she's doing, and I kind of like, wow, I like that. I like what you're studying, and let me have a look at it. I didn't understand much, but I found it really interesting. And so that stayed. And I knew it was going to be physics and not engineering. But only later did I understand that I wanted to do research in physics. And much later, of course, I understood that most people who are in research also teach, but not necessarily. Well, things happened, and I couldn't continue with my research, though I started it. So I got into teaching. My first job was at Lady Keane School, and then my present school, Shillong Jailroad Boys Higher Secondary School. And here in this present school, I'm here for beyond 23 years, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm here. And once I was here, and I kind of made up my mind that I'm going to stay here, because moving out or jumping around was not going to be possible. There are other responsibilities that I have. So this is going to be the place. Then might as well start my work.
Okay, so even though you had not really planned it out, but when it happened, you were happy about it, that you got into teaching.
No, I wouldn't say that. I had actively thought about joining a different kind of a job, like an office job. It just did not appeal to me. I wanted to do something where I have more independence and I could see the product of my work very clearly.
So physics was your passion, and you thought
Absolutely.
teaching would be the best way.
Yeah, because you can see the children blossom. They come to you innocent, not knowing much, and you have this huge opportunity of making these lives blossom. So I thought this is what I was made for.
Rahul, Alexander Pope wrote, and I quote, "Nature and nature's laws lay hid in the night. God said, let Newton be, and all was light." So going by that, do you believe that a teacher is essentially a facilitator, and there is no personal creativity in his teaching, because, it's all there. All that you do is you throw light on it.
Oh, not at all. How do you otherwise have great teachers and not so great
That's
teachers?
what I want to hear from you.
See, in my early years as a physics teacher, I started watching some of the greatest people in physics taking classes. And one of them is Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman, 1965, got the Nobel Prize in Physics for quantum electrodynamics, along with 2 other gentlemen. But even before that, when he was taking his classes in Princeton, people recognized his talent. And in the late 50s, early 60s, there was no video. It was just movie recording. And each and every class of his was movie recorded. And I used to watch his lectures and get inspiration from those lectures. I even used to tune into lectures from really well-known teachers from Stanford taking physics classes. What is it that makes them so great? What is it that they do in the class that makes them stand out?
Rahul, from this I would like to move to the next question, which is connected to what you were just saying. Science is a part of everyday life.
Yeah.
And how do you inculcate the scientific temperament in your students? What are the tools that you use and you've used to make physics interesting to your students?
Okay, these are two different things. One is the temperament, meaning to say living science on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
There is this problem that we have in the country where children go to school and right from about class 6 onwards, they are taught about eclipses. Just as an example, they're taught about eclipses and that eclipses happen because of the shadow of one falling on the other, etc. But when they go back home, they practice all the superstitions of throwing away their food and the water and all of that.
Exactly.
So which means that what they're learning in class is really not translating into their lives.
Yes.
Then we are missing out the major point about learning all of this. And I absolutely make it a point to bring this home, that if after learning this, you don't change your habits and if you don't change your practices at home, then all this learning is a waste.
I completely agree to that. This is exactly what I believe. If I'm not following what I'm reading or studying, then what's the use of it? It's not something far removed from reality. This is reality.
Yeah, true. So. But people will bring that cultural angle, and I think culture changes. And we need to make our country a scientific culture. We need to give it a scientific culture.
Change is constant.
Yes, absolutely.
We need to change if
we need to
grow.
change it, absolutely. There are so many things which have changed, which was part of our culture. We have changed it because we have evolved and we saw the necessity to evolve.
How do you convince your students?
By the way I lead my life, I guess that's the best example. I tell them I don't do it. Come to my house, see. And every eclipse, I've gone up to the terrace, taken pictures and posted them on FB, and everybody else is watching my pictures. Before any celestial event, there's a lot of popularization work that goes on. And Government of Meghalaya has a lot of educational wings that cater to science education. And so many occasions they have taken my services, and we've gone to district after district, school after school, popularizing the event. Celestial events like the transit of Venus, like a total solar eclipse. These things we absolutely target, because this is a huge opportunity for us to give the right kind of education to children and to teach them about the wonders of the sky and get them interested in science. The sad part about our country is the best students, the brightest students, don't go for science research. That is not the trend in the West. In the West, the best students go for science research. Government of India has really taken a lot of steps to encourage people to do this.
Is it because there are not enough satisfactory careers if you are a researcher?
It was at one point of time, and so Government of India has taken the right measures. And today, the kind of careers that are available, the perks that come with a science career, are way beyond what an initial job in engineering or medical science can be.
So if somebody is passionate about physics or chemistry or maths and wants to
any of the basic sciences, and pursues research and lands up even as a scientist C.
He has a bright career.
Absolutely beautiful career ahead.
So what are the tools, as I was asking you? What kind of programs do you have to make science interesting? Or what are the tools that you use even in class to make your teaching interesting?
Well, I teach physics, and physics requires a lot of clarification of concepts. And I'm also conscious about the fact that not every child learns the same way. Learners are of different types. We have kinesthetic learners, auditory learners, visual learners. And people who are really interested in physics need to be good in maths, need to be conceptually strong. And so my focus therefore would be in ensuring that concepts go in, otherwise they can never learn physics. And so I have designed a lot of experiments with throwaway material. Sometimes certain things are difficult to make because the components that are required to make it are either not available here in Shillong or they're just too costly. So sometimes I have requested the school to buy an extra equipment. Sometimes I have bought it with my own pocket money and it's there in the school lab, but it's my personal property, but it's there in the school lab because I use it to teach my students in the class. But most of the experiments are designed with throwaway stuff, and a whole lot of experiments that I have designed. And my stress in designing these experiments have been in showing variations. In the same experiment, I set up 4 or 5 of the same. And then I vary one quality in each of them. Suppose I'm making a motor. In one of them, I have a certain strength of a magnet. The next one is a stronger magnet. Next one, even stronger magnet, keeping everything else the same, and see how things change.
Okay.
Next time, you keep the magnet the same, change the size of the coil, and see how things change. And then they compare this to their theoretical knowledge and see whether they match. That's when the concept really goes in.
Yes, you're talking about concept,
Yeah.
Normally, we have this concept that physics, chemistry, or all the science subjects, maths, these are tough subjects. I want to ask you, are these subjects actually tough and difficult for an average student to understand or perceive? Or is it that it is difficult for the teacher to actually get across and explain and communicate the concept to the students?
No, I think if one is passionate about any subject for that matter, whether it is science subjects or even something like English literature or political science or sociology, if one is passionate about it, one will simply get across to the students.
So you do not agree if that the general concept or the general feeling that people have that science is tough. It's
Oh
not
no, I
meant
don't
for-
agree at all. Physics is so interesting, it's so colorful. Physics is all about nature. What do we study in physics? We study nature in physics. English literature, the Romantic poets also did the same thing, only they did it in a different language. We do it in a different language. The Romantic poets would say,
It's an
it's a
artistic,
beautiful,
manner.
the beautiful blue sky and star-studded sky, etc. And we'd go one step forward and say, I know why the sky is blue, and I know why stars shine. And we are still talking about the same nature. And if I'm passionate and if I can transfer that passion, if they can see my eyes brighten up every time I talk about the stars, they are going to certainly sit back and listen. They're going to think about.
So if the conception of a particular subject is clear from the very beginning, then nothing would be tough.
Absolutely not.
Rather, it would be more interesting.
Interesting, easy. They would say, oh, okay, this is what it is. And I've heard this comment. I've heard this comment over the years. Students come and tell me, that's it? I said, yeah, that's it. What do you think? Oh, I thought this was more complicated than this. I said, physics is not complicated. You complicate it. Physics is what I'm living every day. Physics is what I'm experiencing every day. And if I cannot make those connections, then it's alien. It's within those pages of the textbook. Physics is not to be taught that way. Physics has to be taken out of the textbook and they must experience physics. We don't teach physics. We make them experience physics.
Rahul, what are the challenges you face in teaching science? And how can a teacher teach science effectively?
One of the biggest challenges when students come to class 11 certainly is what you said before, that fear. They've decided to take a career in science and remain with science, and yet they're scared of physics and maths. And breaking that initially is the biggest challenge. Convincing them that stay with me and I'll take you through initially takes a bit of a effort.
So the teacher would play a major role in confidence building of the students.
The teacher is the main person over there. Otherwise, this whole practice of going to school and teaching, which we are carrying on for the last 350 years, would have stopped by now. We would have found a solution to it. There is no solution to it. Even now during COVID times, we are trying all kinds of solutions, remote teaching, but in our heart of hearts, we are still waiting for the day that classes will open because we know this is just not working out the way we would have loved it to happen.
Because the challenges now are different.
Yeah.
Not everybody would be having internet connectivity.
Even if they had connectivity and device, are we able to motivate them the same way that we are able to motivate them when they are in class? How about our body language and their body language?
Associated learning.
How about their facial expressions and me picking up whether they understood or not? All those things happen in the class, and they don't have to tell me that they are lost.
Moreover, education is wholesome.
Yes, it's not about the textbook. It's much more. It's building a whole life. It's building the whole person.
Rahul, tell us about your experiences. You have travelled abroad. Tell us about your experiences, where all you have gone, what all you have learned, and whether these exposures have helped you to become a better teacher.
Let me start with the last question first. Absolutely. These exposures are really, really great exposures. I mean, these programs are so well formulated, designed. See, the first program that I went for was a one-semester program, almost 5-month program in the US. And it has been designed in such a way, heavy, tight program, a lot of pounding into us about the necessary things that we should learn up quickly. So naturally, when we come back so much enabled and empowered. 2012, I came back from the US, and I still remember how differently I started looking at my classroom. And I realized I've been teaching for so many years before that. It's like I never taught anything.
Oh, it was
That's
a new
what they do.
beginning.
It was absolutely a new beginning. You begin to see your classroom differently. You understand the dynamics of your classroom. You begin to understand that there are different kinds of learners, and I haven't catered to all of them. I have only catered to the auditory learner all these years because I've been talking. What about the visual learner? What about the kinesthetic learner? What have I done for them? 2/3 of my class are lost out.
Now, in a classroom, you have a mixed group of students. How do you give individual care to them?
That's a skill you have to develop. One of the first things we need to do in the beginning of the year is know the children. Every year we get a new batch of children in class 11. And that's one of the first tasks we have, individually knowing each child. And it's a good practice to keep a card of each child, including his learning type or her learning type. We might not remember it all the time.
But you have a tight class of about, say, 35 to 40 minutes.
45 minutes, yeah.
In that 40 minutes, how do you manage to reach out to your students in different manners?
It's what we do in our lesson planning. Lesson planning really has to be meticulous. And without planning your lesson, you will never be able to effectively impart a lesson.
So the teacher has to really prepare himself.
Absolutely. I mean, you just can't go to class and say, oh, I'm just been teaching for 10 years, I'm an expert in it. Sorry.
Every class is new.
Every class is new. Every child over there is new. The requirements are new. You have new examples to give. You should not be using the examples, particularly in physics. There are new developments happening all the time. You can always give new examples that are hot topics today.
So that the children can relate to, the youngsters can relate to. Rahul, needless to say, your English, which is your medium of communication, is impeccable. Now, does that make it easier for you to explain physics? If so, would you agree that science and language go hand in hand with respect to teaching?
Absolutely. Without language, you cannot communicate, you cannot pass on the material. Strong hold on the language with vocabulary is required. Not everybody understands the same way. You explain it once, it's gone over their heads, they haven't understood it. If the second time I explain it, I'm going to use the same words, I'm going to have the same effect. I need to use different examples with different effect, with different words, and that's when somebody will understand. And then a third time perhaps with another example with completely different set of words, and maybe more people will understand.
So for effective communication of physics, you again need proper language.
Absolutely. Vocabulary and the language, the hold on the language, absolutely. Otherwise what I'm going to do is use bookish language. I'm going to simply be repeating the definition, and as many times as the student asks, I will simply be repeating the same definition again. That doesn't help.
You have to explain it in your own language?
Absolutely, in a different way. Toss the whole definition up and, reframe the whole thing and serve it in a platter that they understand. That's what we need to do.
So that's what you've been practicing?
Yeah. I have been told in my early years when I joined college, particularly in the physics class, to be good in science, you don't have to be good in English. And thank God I never believed that.
Wonderful. Because this is one thought which came to my mind, and I always feel that even for maths, there are questions which are statement based.
Absolutely.
So if you do not understand the question, how can you actually work out the maths?
Yeah.
All right. Now you have been with the media for so many years, with radio, with television. What is the commonality, if there is anything common, between teaching and your radio, television work? Do they go hand in hand?
Absolutely. Radio, once the fader is up and you need to talk, the initial years I've been taught by many officers here in All India Radio that, see, the listeners have the option of
switching it off.
You got to be saying things which ensure that they're not going to switch it off. So what do you need to do? And so they told us clarity is one, continuity of thought is one, and simplicity is one.
Most important.
If your thought process is not clear, then you will not be able to convey it clearly. And the same thing is for teaching. If in class there is no continuity of thought, there is no clarity of thought, how do I convey? In radio, once the fader is up, you just got to keep talking. And you've got to make sense.
In teaching also you've got to.
Exactly. Stand on your feet and talk. That's the commonality. Stand on your feet and talk.
But, if I say that in teaching there is a little bit of preaching, and when you come on radio,
there is no preaching at all.
There is no preaching at all. It's only communication.
Yeah. But you see, how you present that preaching makes a whole lot of difference. Why should they listen to you?
If you're boring.
Number one. Number two, see, it's the first 2 days of class when they've already judged you and they've made out who you are. And they've figured out whether what this guy says beyond physics is actually worth listening or not listening. So they will listen to your physics because they have no other choice. But the extra stuff, that really depends on what kind of a relationship you have with them. Remember, teaching is all about human relationships.
Rahul, that takes me to the point. You see, our country has numerous stories on the Guru-Shishya Parampara. So, tell us about your relationship with your Shishyas or your students. You were just talking about it. And has this relationship of utmost respect and reverence changed over the years? How do you see it? What has been your experience? How important is this relationship and bonding, as you mentioned?
Well, it is really very important in the sense that I have a rule with my students that I'm not going to accept your Facebook friend request until you get a job. And they do.
Is there any special reason for that?
Oh, we should not be friends with them on Facebook. Absolute no. As a teacher, that's not who you're supposed to be. That's not the kind of relationship you should have with them. We say teachers should be friendly with students.
But
that's not the kind of
friend.
Over here, friendship friendly to students would just simply mean the teacher is approachable. That's it. Nothing more than that. The teacher is approachable. The child can ask subject-related questions and life-related questions. That's it. Nothing else. You don't need to go out together.
So you're very clear on this.
Absolutely. And this is what I tell teachers when I'm training them.
But you are also talking about the emotional bonding with the students. That is important.
That emotional bonding is not there. It is as a teacher, we are there to ensure that, we are up to date always with their problems, that we are there, that they understand that we care for them. But it is not an emotional kind of a thing that, we would have with our child. There is a difference between that. Although we say that you are like my child, yes, you're like my child. That concern certainly is as much for my child as it is for my student regarding academics, regarding his or her well-being, regarding his or her mental development, social development. All that, the equal amount of concern is there. But then we must make a difference between home and workplace. It is a professional job that we do. We must treat it professionally.
So there should be some amount of discipline.
Absolutely.
And
discipline in thought, discipline in thought as well as discipline in action.
Rahul, I'm going to ask you a few questions and I want you to give very fast answers without much thought.
That's a difficult one.
And make that a little short.
Yeah.
How does a good student give birth to a good teacher, or a good teacher gives birth to a good student?
The first one usually is more strong than the second. A good student
gives birth
pushes a teacher to become better.
Other than teaching and your association with radio, TV, your favorite part-time activities?
Reading and writing.
A pleasant incident, in short.
A student the other day wrote back to me, "Sir, I joined your classes knowing very well that I wanted to pursue a career in mathematics. I don't know when you changed my head around and I'm pursuing a course in physics."
Wonderful. Not so pleasant incident, if any.
Parting is always sad when you have the class 12s going out. That's really a sad occasion. The farewells are always emotional days. You don't like to go.
Pleasant.
You don't like to go through those, but it's a rite of passage. They have to go through it. We have to go through it.
If you were to measure on a scale, which would be higher? What you taught your students or what your students taught you?
Good one. I learned to do what I did for the students from them. Meaning to say, they told me their needs.
And that is how
And
you
that-
molded yourself.
That is exactly, I thought, okay, so unless I do this, they're not going to learn. And I can give you an example. It was probably my second year in this present school, and had given them a 10 days deadline to get their textbooks. And the day I had arrived, I went to class, and the first thing I asked was, how many of you still don't have your textbooks? Please stand up. So 3 boys and 1 girl stood up. I said, you can leave my class. If you're not interested, you can go. So the boys left. The girl had to cross me to leave. And as she was crossing, she was a short girl, so she craned her neck up and she said something I couldn't catch. And I said, what did you say? Come back. So she came back and she said, my father is not at home and I don't have money to buy books. That really hit me really, really hard. It reminded me of my own days. And I immediately called her back, asked her to sit down, called the boys back. That was the last time I ever sent anybody out because they didn't have a book. What I did was, immediately after the class, I went to the principal and I told him, look, we have to do something for them. I need to buy 5 books immediately. He told me, get your 5 books, bring the receipt, you don't have to pay, tell them I'll pay later. I got my 5 books, I needed 4. I said, I'll keep 1 extra. I got my 5 books. And I gave it to them. The rule was, they're going to keep it for the entire year, they don't have to bring it back. They're going to return it before we give them the promotion mark sheets.
Okay.
Next year, the word spread, and more students wanted books. We had to buy 5 more, so we needed 10 books that year. And then this continued, and in between, the syllabus changed, and we had to buy a fresh set of books. We did it. And we have this running book bank today. They told me what they needed, and I just did it for them. And this particular girl who I almost threw out of the class, she later in class 12 got the highest mark in one of the subjects.
Wonderful. That's
That's what I'm telling you.
fantastic.
That they tell me what to do and I just do it for them.
Well, you've put your heart and soul into teaching. And would you consider the national award that you've just been selected for as a perfect reward of your hard work?
See, the difficult thing is to say that this is my reward. Because when I look back at all the things that has contributed to this, I find so many people's contributions in my life. I find so many organizations contributing. And I mentioned Meghalaya government earlier. Numerous trainings I was being called for. And then after about 10 years or so, I had to start giving training. Once I start giving training, it's because there's a certain skill level that I have acquired. And where did I get it from? From all these training programs that Government of Meghalaya has arranged. Then there are my friends. The fact that I write today is because of one particular friend. The fact that I'm in All India Radio today and in Doordarshan is because of another friend. The fact that I went to the US is because of another friend. So many people have contributed to this, and I'm really indebted to all of them.
Being an outstanding teacher, give a word to other teachers teaching science.
Well, I would say if you are really thinking of taking teaching as a permanent career, make sure you have the passion for the subject. Without passion, without hard work and without integrity, teaching is not going to work out. It requires a combination of all 3.
Great. Now that you've been recognized at a national level, do you feel that you are an achiever and you have reached the peak? Or do you feel that because you have received the award, you need to strive and achieve even more?
The first 2-3 days was a lot of euphoria after I came to know happiness. As the days have passed, it's so much of a responsibility. Now it's like having to prove myself all over again that I really deserved this. And now what am I going to do? What is it that I haven't done that I need to do? And do it better than before. So it's more of a responsibility than thinking that I'm an achiever. That sense of responsibility is the overarching thought at present than anything else. And I think that is the one that is going to stay.
And that is what is going to keep you going.
Absolutely, yeah.
Today's Teachers' Day. So once again, as we wish you a happy Teachers' Day, one teacher that you would like to thank and wish today on Teachers'
One is
Day.
going to be difficult. I've had some very good teachers throughout school. My physics teacher in school, Professor Ganguly, he has been one person who's inspired me so much. And then in the university, Professor Anandilal Verma, because there's so much I learned from him beyond physics. All about, understanding the child, that this person is different from the other person and treat him different from the other one. That is so important about a teacher. I learned it from him.
So as we wind up, we wish you all the best. Thank you so much for being part of the radio family
My pleasure, always.
and enriching us. We wish you all the very best.
I think All India Radio has enriched me more than I probably would ever be able to do it. It has contributed to my life in ways immeasurable. It's something that has lent itself to even teaching physics, which is my mainstay. And so I will always be indebted to this organization.
Well, let's say that it's a win-win situation for both.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Once again, congratulations from all of us and a happy Teachers' Day.